Bible in a Year. The Message Version, February 28. Leviticus chapter 22, verse 17 through chapter 23, verse 44. God spoke to Moses, "Tell Aaron and his sons and all the people of Israel, each and every one of you, whether native-born or foreigner, who presents a whole burnt offering to God to fulfill a vow or as a free-will offering, must make sure it is male without defect from cattle, sheep, or goat, for it is to be acceptable. Don't try slipping in some creature that has a defect. It won't be accepted. Whenever anyone brings an offering from cattle or sheep as a peace offering to God, to fulfill a vow or as a freewill offering, it has to be perfect, without defect, to be acceptable. Don't try giving God an animal that is blind, crippled, mutilated, an animal with running sores, rash, or mange. Don't place any of these on the altar as a gift to God. You may, though, offer an ox or a sheep that is deformed or stunted as a freewill offering, but it is not acceptable in fulfilling a vow. Don't offer to God an animal with bruised, crushed, torn, or cut off testicles. Don't do this in your own land, but don't accept them from foreigners and present them as food for God either. Because of deformities and defects, they will not be acceptable. God spoke to Moses, "When a calf or a lamb or a goat is born, it is to stay with its mother for 7 days. After the 8th day, it is acceptable as an offering, a gift to God. Don't slaughter both a cow or ewe and its young on the same day. When you sacrifice a thanksgiving offering to God, do it right so it will be acceptable. Eat it on the same day. Don't leave any leftovers until morning. I am God. Do what I tell you. Live what I tell you. I am God. Don't desecrate my holy name. I insist on being treated with holy reverence among the people of Israel. I am God who makes you holy and brought you out of Egypt to be your God. I am God." God spoke to Moses, "Tell the people of Israel, these are my appointed feasts, the appointed feasts of God, which you are to decree as sacred assemblies. Work 6 days. The 7th day is a Sabbath, a day of total and complete rest, a sacred assembly. Don't do any work. Whether you live, it is a Sabbath to God. These are the appointed feasts of God, the sacred assemblies, which you are to announce at the time set for them." God's Passover, beginning at sundown on the 14th day of the first month. God's Feast of Unraised Bread. On the 15th day of the same month, you are to eat unraised bread for 7 days. Hold a sacred assembly on the first day. Don't do any regular work. Offer fire gifts to God for 7 days. On the 7th day, hold a sacred assembly. Don't do any regular work. God spoke to Moses, "Tell the people of Israel, when you arrive at the land that I am giving you and reap its harvest, bring to the priest a sheaf of the first grain that you harvest. He will wave the sheaf before God for acceptance on your behalf on the morning after Sabbath. The priest will wave it. On the same day that you wave the sheaf, offer a year-old male lamb without defect for a whole burnt offering to God, and with it the grain offering for 4 quarts of fine flour mixed with oil, a fire gift to God, a pleasing fragrance, and also a drink offering of a quart of wine. Don't eat any bread or roasted or fresh grain until you have presented this offering to your God. This is a perpetual decree for all your generations to come, whoever and wherever you live." Count 7 full weeks from the morning after the Sabbath, when you brought the sheaf as a wave offering, 50 days until the morning of the 7th Sabbath. Then present a new grain offering to God. Bring from wherever you are living, 2 loaves of bread made from 4 quarts of fine flour and baked with yeast as a wave offering of the first ripe grain to God. In addition to the bread, offer 7 yearling male lambs without defect, plus 1 bull and 2 rams. They will be a whole burnt offering to God, together with their grain offerings and a drink offering, offered as fire gifts, a pleasing fragrance to God. Offer 1 male goat for an absolution offering and 2 yearling lambs for a peace offering. The priest will wave the 2 lambs before God as a wave offering, together with the bread of the first ripe grain. They are sacred offerings to God for the priest. Proclaim the day a sacred assembly. Don't do any ordinary work. It is a perpetual decree, wherever you live, down through your generations. God said to Moses, "Tell the people of Israel on the first day of the 7th month, set aside a day of rest, a sacred assembly. Mark it with loud blasts on the ram's horn. Don't do any ordinary work. Offer a fire gift to God." God said to Moses, "The 10th day of the 7th month is the Day of Atonement. Hold a sacred assembly, fast, and offer a fire gift to God. Don't work on that day, because it is a day of atonement to make atonement for you before your God. Anyone who doesn't fast on that day must be cut off from his people. I will destroy from among his people anyone who works on that day. Don't do any work that day, none. This is a perpetual decree for all the generations to come, wherever you happen to be living. It is a Sabbath of complete and total rest, a fast. Observe your Sabbath from the evening of the 9th day of the month until the following evening." God said to Moses, "Tell the people of Israel, God's feast of booths began on the 15th day of the 7th month. It lasts 7 days. The first day is a sacred assembly. Don't do any ordinary work. Offer fire gifts to God for 7 days. On the 8th day, hold a sacred assembly and offer a gift to God. It is a solemn convocation. Don't do any ordinary work. These are the appointed feasts of God, which you will decree as sacred assemblies for presenting fire gifts to God, the whole burnt offerings, grain offerings, sacrifices, and drink offerings assigned to each day. These are in addition to offerings for God's Sabbaths, and also in addition to other gifts connected with whatever you have vowed and all the free will offerings you give to God. So, summing up, on the 15th day of the 7th month, after you have brought your crops in from your fields, celebrate the feast of God for 7 days. The first day is a complete rest, and the 8th day is a complete rest. On the first day, pick the best fruit from the best trees. Take fronds of palm trees and branches of leafy trees and from willows by the brook, and celebrate in the presence of your God. For 7 days, yes, for 7 full days, celebrate it as a festival to God. Every year from now on, celebrate it in the 7th month. Live in booths for 7 days. Every son and daughter of Israel is to move into booths, so that your descendants will know that I made the people of Israel live in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am God, your God. Moses posted the calendar for the annual appointed feasts of God, which Israel was to celebrate. Mark chapter 9, verse 30 through chapter 10, verse 12. Leaving there, they, Jesus and his disciples, went through Galilee. He didn't want anyone to know their whereabouts, for he wanted to teach his disciples. He told them, "The Son of Man is about to be betrayed to some people who want nothing to do with God. They will murder him. 3 days after his murder, he will rise alive." They didn't know what he was talking about, but were afraid to ask him about it. They came to Capernaum. When he was safe at home, he asked them, "What were you discussing on the road?" The silence was deafening. They had been arguing with one another over who among them was greatest. He sat down and summed the 12. "So, you want first place? Then take the last place. Be the servant of all." He put a child in the middle of the room. Then, cradling the little one in his arms, he said, "Whoever embraces one of these children as I do embraces me, and far more than me, God who sent me." John spoke up, "Teacher, we saw a man using your name to expel demons, and we stopped him because he wasn't in our group." Jesus wasn't pleased. "Don't stop him. No one can use my name to do something good and powerful, and in the next breath slam me. If he's not an enemy, he's an ally. Why, anyone, by just giving you a cup of water in my name, is on our side. Count on it that God will notice." On the other hand, if you give one of these simple, childlike believers a hard time, bullying, or taking advantage of their simple trust, you'll soon wish you hadn't. You'd be better off dropped in the middle of a lake with a milestone around your neck. If your hand or foot gets in the way, chop it off and throw it away. You'd be better off maimed or lame and alive than the proud owner of 2 hands and 2 feet, godless in a furnace of eternal fire. And if your eye distracts you from God, pull it out and throw it away. You're better off one-eyed and alive than exercising your 20/20 vision from inside the fire of hell. Everyone's going through a refining fire sooner or later, but you'll be well preserved, protected from the eternal flames. Be preservatives yourself. Preserve the peace. From there he went to the area of Judah across the Jordan. A crowd of people, as was so often the case, went along, and he, as he so often did, taught them. Pharisees came up, intending to give him a hard time. They asked, "Is it legal for a man to divorce his wife?" Jesus said, "What did Moses command?" They answered, "Moses gave permission to fill out a certificate of dismissal and divorce her." Jesus said, "Moses wrote these commands only as a concession to your hard-hearted ways. In the original creation, God made male and female to be together. Because of this, a man leaves his father and mother, and in marriage he becomes one flesh with a woman, no longer 2 individuals, but forming a new unity, because God created this organic union of the 2. No one should desecrate his art by cutting them apart." When they were back home, the disciples brought it up again. Jesus gave it to them straight. A man who divorces his wife so he can marry someone else commits adultery against her, and a woman who divorces her husband so that she can marry someone else commits adultery. Psalm chapter 44, verse 1 through verse 8. A psalm of the sons of Korah. We've been hearing about this God all our lives. Our fathers told us the stories their fathers told them, how single-handedly you weeded out the godless from the fields and planted us, how you sent those people packing but gave us a fresh start. We didn't fight for this land. We didn't work for it. It was a gift. You gave it, smiling as you gave it, delighting as you gave it. You're my king, O God. Command victories for Jacob. With your help, we'll wipe out our enemies. In your name, we'll stomp them to dust. I don't trust in weapons. My sword won't save me, but it's you. You who saved us from the enemy. You made those who hate us lose face. All day we parade God's praise. We thank you by name over and over. Proverbs chapter 10, verse 19. The more talk, the less truth. The wise measure their words. This was a daily reading from the Message Bible for February 28.